In this slide, we will be looking at project risk management. So risk is something which is uncertain event or condition that can occur and can have an effect on the project outcome. So a risk can either be a positive one or a negative one. Usually we feel that a risk is always a negative one, but it can also be a positive one for the company. So in terms of risk management and the project, we usually look at it in terms of the time, cost and scope of the project. So how does uncertain event affects the time, cost and the quality of a project? So our job is here to find out what are the various risks that can affect the project and how they would affect it, what its impact would be, how we could mitigate it and overcome the risks. So project risk management is all about finding out the risk and trying to overcome them. So it is a normal risk management model that we can apply to a project risk also. So first we start with risk identification, finding what are the risks, various risks in a project. Then we maintain a risk register where we note down all the risks. Then we go for risk estimation. We estimate what is the level of risk, whether it's severe or medium or acceptable level. Then we try to find out a risk mapping. Risk mapping is a 2x2 matrix where on one side we have possibility of a risk on the other side we have the impact of the risk. So once we have found out like what are the various type of risks in our business are, then we start to report it. So risk register is documenting it, reporting it. We have to summarize the risk and send it to various people in the company so that they are able to take an appropriate action over the risk. Then risk treatment, that is how the risk is going to be minimized, and after the risk treatment, if there is any other risk, that's called residual risk, and that has to be reported to concerned authorities. So this is a very simple risk management model, and it is like the common model which is applied to a project management also. So this is the 2x2 matrix which we were like speaking about. So it's called as a TARA model. So on one side we have the probability of the risk occurring, on the other side we have the impact of the risk if it occurs. So we have a 2x2 matrix here. On one side we have low and high, on the probability also we have low and high. So if the probability of the risk is going to be low and the impact is also low, then we don't need to think too much about the risk. We can just accept the risk because it's like the impact is also low, the probability is also low. If the probability is high and the impact is low, then we have to reduce it. So how we reduce it? We use internal control systems, we use monitoring systems, we use controlling systems so that the risk gets reduced. We can also introduce audits, internal audits like that, which reduces the probability of the event occurring. So once the probability gets reduced, then it moves on to a low probability and low impact risk. On the other side, we can have a high impact risk with a low probability. So even though the chance of this risk occurring is like very low, for example, a factory getting onto a fire or a building getting collapsed, these are like probability wise it's low, but if it happens, it's going to have a high risk. This kind of a risk has to be transferred to some other party. For example, we can outsource it, we can take an insurance. So these are the options which are like available. So once we have taken an insurance, the impact is not going to be high, it's going to be low. So already the probability was low and the impact has been brought to low. It has now moved to the accept box. So on the last case, we have the high impact and a high probability event. These are things which the company should clear-cutly avoid. So they have to avoid all these types of work. So this is the TARA model, or called as risk treatment. So here we detailedly we see like how it moves. So we have the TARA model here, TARA, the TARA model. So certain things should be avoided, certain things should be accepted, transferred, reduced. So this tells you what are the various ways in which we can use the TARA model.
So if you guys really like the video, put a like for us and share it with your friends who might find it useful. So if you guys have any queries or questions, post it in the comment section. We'll be like happy to answer them.
So here we'll look at the project management and change management together. So assume that we have created a project. Okay, so we want to construct a metro train. So that's a very big project here. So at the initial starting of the project, there is a clear-cut document, clear-cut sequence and steps as to what are the works has to be done. But over a period of time, when the project is like slowly initiated and it's like executed, there will be a period where some modifications has to be made, or some material has to be changed, or some changes in plan is like required. If it's going to be just one change, it's not a problem, but every once in a while we have to keep changing things a little bit here and there. So when we keep on changing things, don't you think it will affect the original plan itself? Okay, so that is kind of a problem number one. When we make constant small changes in the project, okay, that might even lead to a big change. That's one. Two, we actually allocate work to people based upon the original document. When we keep changing the project here, there are like newer kinds of activities that has to be done, and resources has to be bought, time limit has to be changed. So what happens is, the people who are working, their work plan also has to be changed. They can't work on version number 1 plan. They have to work on the latest version of the plan. So the plan changes whenever there's a change required. So there will be like a version 1, then version 2, 3, 4, like that. So every person in the company should be with an updated version of the plan. So that is where change management comes in. So here in project management, they call it as configuration management and change control. See, change is a inevitable part of any project, and it has to be carefully managed. Change may arise from internal or external factors, can often change the outcome of the project itself. It is therefore important to have an agreed change management process in place. So even to change a project, there should be a process, and that process has to be followed thoroughly. So whenever a new plan has to be created from version 2, from version 1, they want to create a version 2 now, then that version 2 has to be prepared in a particular set process. So that is also called as a configuration management. So why do we do it? Because everyone involved in the project is aware of how change will be managed. So it is important that the initial project document, such as the PID, remain as the baseline. So there should be one document, something like version 0, which is like unchanged. It is always the base case. Okay, so that all changes can be carefully monitored and controlled. So there should be a base case called as a version 0. Version 1, 2, 3, 4, or things like that can be like updated and modified, and they can be new. But we have to compare like the version 6 and version 0. Then only we will know like how different version 0 and 6 are. So every version, like version 1 should be compared with 0, 2 should be compared with 0, 3 should be compared with 0. Only when we compare it, we know that how much change has occurred from the 0 version to the latest version. A change control process is not to stop change happening, okay, but to ensure that the changes which will inevitably be required during the project are agreed and communicated to all parties before they are implemented. So change is going to happen in a project. If it happens, how it is going to be agreed by people and how it is to be communicated to the people. So that is called configuration management again. See, why do we need to have this? For example, the customer might say that I want a product like this, a red color vehicle with 2 wheels, okay, and a handle. But this is how various people might start to understand it. Okay, the customer feels this and gives a description like this. It should be simple, red, robust, with wheels. But there are like various people who are working with in a project. So what they will understand is, they will understand it can be like this, or this, or like this, or even like this. Okay, so the way they understand, it's like way different. So all people in working in a project should be very clear with what is the customer's needs and what they are working for. And for that, configuration management and change management helps. So problems if change is not managed properly. Team members may be working with the old plan. For example, there will be like version 6 which is like currently created, but still people are following still version number 0. This can mean wasted time. So they are working on an old plan. The project is unlikely to deliver. So the version 6 is what is actually required, but 0 is too old. End users will be unhappy with the final product if their expectations have not been managed through the project. So what the end users want was version 6, but what the company gave was, but what the employees were working on was version 0. And finally, there's a huge mismatch between what is expected and what is worked on. And all this will only end up costing more and incurring more time of the team members. So the essential part is configuration management is very important, change control is very important, and companies have to follow them. So how it is done? Configuration management involves tracking and controlling all aspects of the project and all documentation. So it's about the creation of documents and deliverables from the project and storing it in a particular place. Configuration management system for a project will specify how all aspects of the project are to be managed. So it tells what are the various works to be done, how it is to be done, who is to do it. Activities in configuration management. So what are the works they do in configuration management is they control the versions, version 0 to version 6, ownership and responsibility, who is responsible for documenting and recording all these versions, who is authorized to change the versions, who is authorized to track the version, who is monitoring them, who is controlling these changes, and who has access to over these records. So it's about the documentation and the entire ownership of the documentation here. So now we move on to the project completion and closure. So once the project has been planned, it's executed, it's controlled, the final step is to complete the project and move on, because projects are only a one-off item. So they are like unique products or services which are created for a particular purpose. Once it has been created, the team is dissolved and the project is closed. So this is the final stage of the project life cycle. The main purpose of closure procedures is to evaluate the overall project and to learn from the experiences gained. So it is a formal way of saying that yes, we have finished it and we are going to move on to the next projects. So the team, the company as a whole, they have to learn from what happened in the project so that it's like useful in the future projects. Project termination activities would include the following: organizing and filing all project documentations, the third party is getting the final payments, project is delivered, a formal sign off is made saying that the project is over and it is like handed off, and a review meeting is done finally to find out like how all the steps in the project has been moved and what were the problems they have incurred. The final report is given as to what is the total cost, time, resources involved, and finally that project team is disbanded. So once the project is like over, immediately they conduct something called as a post-project review. So a post-project review is like immediately conducted at the end of the project, and this allows the project team to move on to another project. So why they should conduct a post-project review is the project team and the company can now dissolution of the project team, the team is no more, performance review, how the project team has worked and how the project was was delivered, okay, determination of lesson learned, what are the lessons they have learned, and a formal closure saying that this project is like over. They also learn from how the project was like conceived, how it was implemented, how it was executed, how it was controlled. All these things they will sit together and they will learn. So this is a review which is done immediately after the completion of a project, and it is purely for the sake of learning. So now we will look at what is a post implementation review. So assume that a metro train has been built, okay. A post implementation review takes after some 3 months or a 6 months time. So why do they actually do a post implementation review? See, the project was to construct a metro train, okay, and a railway network for that and handover. So the engineer's work and the project team's work is done. But the construction is not the main idea. The main idea was to reduce the traffic and to improve the safety of people and to reduce the time of travel. See, these are the main aims, okay. So which is like beyond the aim of constructing a metro train. So this aim, has it been achieved? So this cannot be like immediately after the completion of the project, it cannot be done. It has to be done only after some 3 months or 6 months time interval. So after 6 months, they try to find out like whether the benefits which they thought would occur have occurred or not. So a PIR would typically involve the following analysis: product's fitness for intended purpose, is the railway network working properly, cost and benefits to date against forecast, what was the cost, operational cost of running a train and what is the benefit that they thought they will get and have they got it, any areas for further development, strategic fit, effectiveness of revised business operations, and stakeholder satisfaction. So whether this product, okay, it's not about the project anymore, whether the railway network and metro system as a product, has it fulfilled the expectations which they initially had, okay, has it satisfied it. If it has done, then it means the entire product and project was like excellent. If it's not, then they have to sit and think where things have gone wrong, whether it's in the product or whether it's in the project. So the review will not only discuss strategies for fixing and addressing identified faults, but it will also make recommendation on how to avoid these faults in future. For example, if there's a metro train in Chennai, the same train might even be like constructed even in somewhere in Delhi. So the mistakes which they learned in creating a metro train network in Chennai, that lesson they can avoid in, that mistakes they can avoid in while constructing in Delhi. So why do projects fail? So these are the reasons why like projects fail. You can you can find out that most of these topics relate to the planning, the initiation, the documentation, the leadership, okay, the support, the stakeholders. So it consists of the various elements which lead to a failure of a project. To overcome this, there is a 12 golden rules, okay. So if a company focuses on these and then they try to manage a project, it will be much more better.
So if you guys really like the video, put a like for us and share it with your friends who might find it useful. So if you guys have any queries or questions, post it in the comment section. We'll be like happy to answer them. If you guys have any other ideas for further videos, you can put it in the comment section. We'll be like creating a new video on that topic also. So thank you guys. We'll meet in the next video.